doctor here. He probably knows more about enzymes, enzymology, and life food than anybody on the planet.
Except for Gabriel Cousens.
Well, I don't know about that. Because they say Victor's really one of the greats in the life food movement. When the Elders Conference happens, he's one of two other people we've invited, because I have that much respect for him and who he is and who he's been. Well, he's consistently been. I like the consistency part. So,
thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, brother.
Okay, good.
It's a blessing to be in this enzymatically active community of blue-collar workers. Basically, that's what enzymology is all about. Enzymes are considered blue-collar workers. They're humble, like you guys and gals. They do their job. They're very focused. They're not crazy in time of past, future. They're in the eternal now and making things happen. You'd think it's a big deal if you could multitask maybe 3 events at the same time, putting on your makeup, doing a text message while driving a car. That sounds like, my God, impressive. But what about if you are looking at 10 followed by 27-0, the number of activities occurring every second, multitasking. That's about what you have within the human and any living system in terms of enzymatic activities. Enzymatic activities can take place at the rate of 2 billion chops per second. That is outrageous. What are enzymes in a sense? And what I'm going to do is look at enzymes, look at it both from a historical point of view, therapeutic point of view, and also your personal point of view. And also how you can make enzymes. I know that the food, everything you consume already has quite a reservoir of enzymes. However, you can crank up the levels, as you will see from my discussion. Enzymes comes from Greek. It's a word that means change. They noticed that certain magic occurred under certain conditions they did not understand, but they noted, and it was called enzyme activity. Whether it is a bread rising or the wine turning the grape juice into something bubbly and also intoxicating, or it was taking milk and it becoming yogurt, becoming cheese to the surface. They noticed also that those who consumed for thousands of years fermented foods, they were healthier than those who did not. Now, of course, there'll be some bit of controversy on that, and I totally agree on, is it even essential in fermented food consumption? I would say no, but at the same time, can it be useful in this culture? Especially at this time of our own evolutionary history, I say yes, it's very important, because none of you are blessed with having been raised on live food enzymatic nutrition, which full spectrum of minerals, which determine the enzymatic density of any food, so that enzymatic support is always beneficial. We want to have for ourselves the enzymatic reserves, and they are reserves. We are born with a certain volume. Some are born with more than others. The ones that are born with a very high density of minerals and enzymes, full spectrum, they're able to withstand much more stress. They can handle much more abusiveness. And they can also achieve higher levels of sacred aspirations and connect more with the dharmic path. In our more modern time frame, the enzymes were discovered first within the Western world by using the digestive process was believed to be mechanical at a certain point in history. No one really fully understood. They just talked about it within the medical and philosophical community. Eventually, somebody of more scientific persuasion ended up proving it to be different. What they did was create a little cage, of metallic cage, and they introduced meat into it, and they had a hawk swallow it, and it was on a string, and they let it sit in this cage, the meat, and they found that the meat disappeared. They knew it disappeared when they pulled it up out of their stomach, out of the mouth on a string, thus establishing it was not mechanical. Later, another individual saw that the secretions of the stomach, by having it in a sponge and capturing it and associated with the food, pulling it out, then they squeezed the content on food, and they saw food go through change. A simple change that any of you can do with strong enzymatic secretions. An example was like pineapple has strong protease activity. Add to a Jello solution and do the whole process at a temperature below 110 anyways, and you'll find that the gelatin, the protein of gelatin, will have gone through enzymatic processes due to the presence of the protease enzyme from the pineapple, and now it will not solidify when kept in a refrigerator, the Jello. Sprouted wheat, chew it up in your mouth, and you'll be left with a globule of gluten. Introduce an enzyme that has protease, and within seconds it dissolves. Or take some enzymes, like the one here, Beautiful Enzymes of Mr. Wolf, and have a dish and have a teaspoon of oil in it. Warm water would be first placed, and then the dish, and then into the dish 1 teaspoon of oil, and then sprinkle some of these enzymes, and right before your eyes they will be dispersed. That's how rapidly this stuff works. Now, the most early researched enzymes were the pancreatic, because in the West there was not that awareness. In the East, in the Asiatic tradition, it was plant-based. Tamari, miso, and the fermentation, tempeh, and the fermentation of kimchi, kombucha, and all these other kind of possible components. So in our Western world, Max Wolf of Fordham University, New York, who himself was an extremely colorful character, who started his career as an artist for the King's Court in England. He himself was German. Amazing character to be able to just to have that kind of a presence in the court system. He got bored with that whole thing, and his brother was a doctor in New York. So he decided he's going to go to New York, and within 2 years he was teaching already college, medical school, and at the same time wrote a big bestseller on hormone therapy and etc., and which ended up becoming a bestseller. But he ended up working with the pancreatic juices, and he was able to isolate and concentrate. And the magic he created, his research shows, with enzymatic solutions orally administered, 95% of cardiovascular system challenges are cleared up, whether it's vascular or deposits, just like the environmentally safe Drano that you can find in Walmart and other department stores. If you pour it down your pipes, which were all clogged up with what? With fried foods, grease, namely heat-treated fats, with protein globules, starch sedimentation, pour it down, in a matter of minutes, it unblocks it. Or when you have an environmental disaster, what do? They spray it again with oil spill. They spray it with enzymes and microbial cultures that are noted to be extremely highly prolific in excreting high volume of lipase, the fat-splitting enzymes, to clear up the environment. So Max Wolf was able to show very successful activity in relationship of clearing up cardiovascular conditions. Other doctors published papers like Dr. Chin-Po Kim. He was treating individuals with cancer conditions. No lifestyle change outside of administering enzymes. He had 79% recovery. That is considered extremely high with a 5-year follow-up. No other lifestyle changes. Now, at Hippocrates, we have a predominant, about 60% of the clients that come to us are basically have some form of cancer. And we see results where we have more closer to 90, 95%. Certain volume will not go through recovery because they really don't want to. Like John Christopher, the famous herbologist, he says there are no incurable diseases, only incurable personalities. Some people have an attitude. You know, an attitude like, you can call it demonic possessed. You can call it biochemical imbalance. Primarily, the whole thing resides that they would prefer to pursue their addiction instead of pursue joy and bliss. And such individuals are, in a spiritual way, totally misaligned with their dharmic presence on earth. As a result, they're looking for sedation and escape. So, we have two of the most devastating, treacherous causes for degeneration and extinction in terms of cancer and cardiovascular diseases are addressed by enzymatic therapeutics. The third leading cause of death is medical intervention, and there is an answer to that. Basically, seek out better professional advice, whether it's Dr. Gabriel Cousens or Physicians Committee for Responsible Medicine, or many of the vegan-based, or at least minimal would be not vegan, but at least alternative doctors who will support you in your overall healing if you do need coaching and guidance, especially if you have some hormonal imbalances or you have some levels of biochemical pharmaceutical dependency. Now, what is the medical community's attitude toward enzymes? Well, in Today's Health in 1960, which is the public for the general public magazine from the American Medical Association, in 1970, I quote in my book Survival in the 21st Century, basically they state that probably all diseases, degenerative diseases, are caused by faulty and or missing enzymes. That's a pretty strong statement. In the book written by Mielke, Lopez, and Williams, the book is Enzymes, Fountain of Life, 1994. They quote from the book, the Bible of Pharmacology, that the greatest therapeutic anticipations in pharmacology will be found in enzymology. They're pretty strong, again. And we are seeing in the press, in the media, you can type in nowadays any kind of degenerative diseases on Google and put in enzymatic therapies, and you'll find research data. That includes also pancreatic cancer. And who gobbles this up? It's the enzymatic immune system function that dissolves when you are in a state of prayer, in a state of meditation, and especially when you reduce the expenditure of your enzymes to carry on metabolic activity. That's why you find in all spiritual scriptures and teachings the emphasis on how do you get rid of the demons? Through fasting and prayer. Contemplation, stilling the mind. And in the Essene tradition, Essene Gospel of Peace, it just talks about chasing out the demons. The demons where basically you became possessed by craziness that you have created by the toxemia that was internally, whether you are becoming debilitated and your divine interpretation of the world as being one of joy, peace, the natural state has been lost due to continuous ever-indulgence in violence, so that when you come into stillness, all this more and more will disappear eventually. Nothing traumatizes you. You're continuously in a state of joy, and you know that only goodness follows your life. And every life experience is an opportunity for growth and development, challenges, and not to be faced with anything with the fear node. Instead, face it with an opportunity node. So enzymatic is the flagship nutrient of the raw community because it breaks down the quickest. And this is what we are finding in the book, the first book in enzymology I co-authored with 500 medical journal references with Dr. Edwin Howell. I found his manuscripts in Harvard Medical Library. I tracked him down and pleaded with him that this is a work that needs to be brought to the world. And he agreed, and he allowed me to write an extremely lengthy introduction and an interview with him, and I spent my own money publishing 10,000 copies of the book. And it's presently in circulation. Eventually it was translated to basically the language, common language, so that instead of being in a medical terminology, which was initially in the book that I contributed, and it became the two books of Dr. Edward Howell. So we initiated after that, which was not available. Plant-based enzymes were basically non-existent outside of bromelain and papain, which are basically helpful in anti-inflammatory conditions, but they're not that helpful as digestive enzymes. Dr. Howell utilized the Oriental, Japanese are the largest manufacturers of plant-based enzymes, utilized them in a very respectful, very low potency and low dosage. He trained me to the level of some of the material that would be necessary in formulations, and I ended up becoming, during the last 20 years, involved with introducing about 100 different formulas in the health food industry, network marketing industry community. And now plant-based enzymes has become the standards. Whole Foods has extremely high potencies available, and you can find it on the internet at a lot of very discounted pricing. So shopping around is the way to go, and you want to go for the ones that gives you the levels of activity, not by weight, and you want to go for enzymes that are also at the same time very high in potency. So protease units should be, I would say minimal would be 70,000, amylase minimal would be 15 to 20,000, lipase minimal would be about 1,000 units, etc. And then also all the different cofactors. When taken with meals, it supports digestion, and some of it is reabsorbed and utilized by your body in metabolic activity. When taken in between meals, then it is about up to 80% of it is absorbed, and it's utilized by immune function and metabolic in the treatment of degenerative diseases. So thank you very much.